Welcome to the forum for the Zone 7 Water Agency candidates. This evening, the forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Livermore-Amador Valley. I am Barbara Hempel, a member of the League of Women Voters, and also your moderator this evening. The League is a multi-issue nonprofit organization. Our primary goal is an informed and active electorate. The League is nonpartisan. We do not endorse or oppose any political party or candidate. Membership is open to any citizen 18 years of age or older. There are 7 candidates for the 4 positions on the Board of Directors of Alameda County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, Zone 7, in the June 3rd, 2014 direct primary election. They are in alphabetical order: Alfred Exner, John Greasy, A.G. Makevich, Jim McGrail, Matt Morrison, Sarah Palmer, and Bill Stevens. 4 candidates are incumbents: John Greasy, A.J. Makevich, Sarah Palmer, and Bill Stevens. A.J. Makevich is unable to attend tonight. We will use the following ground rules this evening. In alphabetical order, we will begin with opening remarks of up to 2 minutes by each candidate. Written questions will be accepted from the audience by League members Dolores Bankston and Elva Cooper. Questions will be read to the candidates by Elva Cooper. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to questions. Personal, abusive, or repetitive questions will not be asked. Questions may be directed to individual candidates, but each candidate will have an opportunity to answer a question if they wish. We will conclude with closing remarks of up to 2 minutes from each candidate in reverse alphabetical order. Our timekeeper is a member of the League, Julie Swinter, and she will signal a 30-second warning and then signal time. You are requested to end your remarks at that time. We will begin with opening remarks by Alfred Exner.
Okay. I want to thank you for inviting me. And I guess my reason for running is, a lot of people ask me that, and I guess I'd like to say that it's kind of a family trait that we put up our hands sometimes when we shouldn't, I guess. And I think it's just part of what a lot of our family does, whether it's joining the military or serving on school district boards and that type of thing. I moved here in 1977 after going to San Jose State with my wife, and served on a lot of soccer, church activities, and Indian guides, and over the years. My education is a BS from San Jose State with accounting emphasis, and then an MBA in accounting from Golden Gate University in San Francisco. My work experience really is over the Air Force. I was a budget analyst in intelligence, and I started my accounting career there, and they led me into the intelligence work. When I got done with college, I spent about 37 years in different types of financial responsibilities, from filing annual reports to putting in computer systems. I guess the environmental side is primarily, I've devoted money toward Nature Conservancy over the years, and that's probably my biggest passion in terms of that if something needs to get done, they can jump in and help a community get it done. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear from John Greasy next.
Again, I want to thank for the opportunity to be here tonight. And I've done this before. I've been on this board, the Zone 7 board, for 20 years. And it's a perfect opportunity to address individuals that are really concerned about candidates that they can vote for. I've been in Livermore since 1952. I grew up here, went to Livermore High School, graduated in '63, went to Modesto JC, then Cal Poly, where I graduated with my BS in animal science and chemistry and biology, and my graduate work through UC Davis. I taught at Livermore High School for 20 years, and then worked at the lab as a groundwater cleanup manager. The lab is a Superfund site, as most of you probably already know. My responsibilities were in charge of the implementation of 2,000 wells and management of, and design of 44 water treatment facilities. This background has given me an opportunity to really have a strong interest in water, and my interest used to be in quality. And as you all know, right now it's switched. It's now quantity. We're going through a severe drought, and these are some real strong upcoming concerns that the Zone 7 is going to have to deal with in the next few years. Again, thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate is Jim McGrail.
Thank you. And again, thank you for allowing us to come and speak to you. My background is this, born in Alameda, they're actually Oakland, Alameda County, was raised in the unincorporated area of Hayward, went to Chabot College, received a administration of justice degree, became a deputy sheriff when I was 21. I spent 14 years in law enforcement, then went on to law school, became a prosecutor for another 4 years. I got so involved in the community here with Granada Little League, soccer, etc., I decided to open a law practice here in town, and I've been here ever since. I can't count it, I think 24, 25 years. But so, been in the community and understand the community, and this is a time when, as the two gentlemen next to me said, it's time to step up and do something to help all of us. I also own a little vineyard, and the drought situation has really turned the lights on in my house. My daughter runs it with my wife, my other daughter, and my daughter-in-law. And we've had this vineyard for the last 15 years. We understand how important water is, and we are in a situation right now where we need to address the issues we are in. The downtown Livermore is a diamond, and the reason it's a diamond is because of the vineyards. We are the economic engine for downtown Livermore, and I want to preserve that. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now hear from Matt Morrison.
Hey, Matt Morrison, a resident of Pleasanton, and I want to thank you again, although as mentioned to Jim, this is my least favorite part of the forum. I moved to Pleasanton with my family when I was 4 in 1969. We've lived here ever since. I married my wife. We're both Foothill graduates from '82 and '83. We raised 3 children, 1 Foothill graduate and 2 Amador graduates. And they're all locally going to San Francisco State University. I worked for Triad Systems here in Livermore for about 11 years, where I was in charge of distributing, for the most of that time I was in charge of doing their CD-ROM, data CD-ROM distribution. And then I obtained my bachelor's degree from St. Mary's in organizational management. I moved over to pro-business in Pleasanton and worked there for 7.5 years, primarily in agency relations, account management, and tax research. I got involved in water back in '98 during the water reuse discussions between Zone 7 and DSRSD. I ended up running for Zone 7 in 2000, and it was a good learning experience for me. I enjoyed going to the flood control meetings and the water supply meetings, and I started to learn a lot about water. And after I lost the election, I kind of got out of politics for about 3 or 4 years, and when I got back in a volunteer role, which I've been in with the Sierra Club. Somebody had suggested that I could use my efforts there. I've been working with the Sierra Club now for 10 years, mostly around water. I was on the local Tri-Valley board for about 7 years, and I was also a former chair of the Bay Chapter Water Committee and also vice chair of the State Water Committee in charge of Delta issues. And I think that's going to help me with some of the issues facing Zone 7 coming up in the next few years.
Thank you. We'll hear next from Sarah Palmer.
Okay, well, I've been on the Zone 7 board for the last 8 years, and how I initially got in with water is that I've taught environmental science on both the university and the high school level, and started to work with some of the engineers there in terms of being involved with the Gamma project that was going on, and working with some of the folks up at Lawrence Livermore Lab writing some curriculum for teachers regarding water and water pollution. My background is that I'm a biochemist, PhD biochemist by training from University of Toronto. Before that, I had gone to NYU for my undergraduate. And then, since then, have worked industrially and in universities, most of the major universities around, including Berkeley and Cal State and Mills and Holy Names, teaching biology and biochemistry. My interests really in water are in the sense of keeping water sustainable, looking at sustainability of our water supplies. I'm very concerned with our groundwater. I've gone to several of the meetings with the ACW. That's the Association of California Water Agencies. And it's crucially important to have a deep understanding of the hydrology of the water, to understand how there's a real connection between surface water and groundwater, as well as looking at not just quantity but also quality, because we're working at both health and the environment as well. And I think we do need to protect our vineyards as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Our final candidate tonight is Bill Stevens.
Hello, thank you for inviting me. I'm from Virginia. I graduated in 81 from the University of Virginia in civil engineering. I then came cross country and went to Las Cruces grad school for a while. Then went to Arizona. I got my master's in geological engineering. And after I graduated, I moved 10 times in 10 years. I've lived in San Diego for 3 years as an engineer. San Luis Obispo was my first job, and I moved up here, and this is the best place I've ever lived. I love this area. When I was at PG&E, I drilled probably a dozen dams. I know how dams operate. So I know some people think dams are bad, some people are good, but right now they're there. I've been in the Bay Area for, I don't know, maybe over 10 years. My wife is native of Livermore, not over 15 years. And I've worked in the Bay Area as a geotech engineer. And I think with my background in geology and geotechnical engineering, it just fits in perfectly. This is I'm going for my 5th term. I don't think I really contributed to Zone 7 until the last 5 or 6 years, because it's very, very complicated. You got water and flood control. I first got into Zone 7 because I wanted to go on to higher office. And once I ran for city council, I knew I was not cut out to be a politician. I can't smile on demand, okay, at all. I don't have the personality for it. My humor is very dry. The only person that can understand my humor is my wife. And so nobody else laughs. And so that's why I'm running again, because I think I can contribute more with my experience as a Zone 7 director. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now have a 10-minute break while our league members collect questions and get them organized, and then we will begin our questioning period of candidates. We will now resume our forum with questions from the audience.
All right, and we will skip around, but anyone can answer any question that wants to. And I'll start with Mr. Stevens with the first question. What is Zone 7's policy for providing water to untreated water customers during drought cutback periods?
Ag water customers have contracts that have been in place for many years, and we cut off having any more new ag water people add on to the list because we knew there was a limit. And that was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. But it's the same policy as M&I. M&I is a term, it's called municipal and industrial. It's you and I, the businesses, okay? So if M&I gets a 50% cutback, ag water gets a 50% cutback. If M&I gets a 10% cutback, ag water gets 10%.
Thank you. Is there any other candidate who would like to answer that?
Well, I'm new at this, but my impression was that Zone 7,
The wording was that they would endeavor to provide water, is how I understood the wording. So.
John, can you explain that, or do you want me to?
Let me take a stab at it.
Put it in your hand also, as a chief.
The ag water, M&I water, it's all underwater. And there's called allocations. You pay so much to get so much water. When 80% of our water comes from the Delta, and the state tells us you're not going to get it, that means 20% of our water that was taken from the basin is going to be taken out, along with the 80 that we used to get from the Delta. That puts a lot of demand on our groundwater basin, which is our checking account, our reserves. No one has a high priority as far as getting the water. You first have to have the allocation and you pay for it, and we're entirely dependent on the state to give us so much water, which is based on the snowfall. You may have an allocation, but you have no guarantee of that allocation. It's all dependent on the snow. And because it comes from the state, our local agency has absolutely no call on any changes of what they're going to give us. If they only have 5% of water, which it was going to be this year for a while, until they cut us down to 0, that's all that's there. So it's a supply issue.
This is one of the reasons that I'm here, sitting here before you tonight. Our agricultural community has done so much for this valley, we cannot lose it. And it's my opinion and my thought process and my goal to make sure that we don't have issues like this, where when the agricultural community needs water, they should have it. If it starts with the state, it starts with the state, but I believe there's issues that we can address locally here to ensure that we continue to have our agricultural community. And not just for the viticulture, also for our ranchers. Our ranchers right now are suffering terrible too. The cost of beef is going to go through the roof, and that shouldn't happen either. I mean, we're hard-working people, and we made a commitment to the community, and we would hope that that same commitment would come back to us.
Ms. Palmer, I believe you wanted to ask a question or a talk.
I just wanted to put something in there, that one of the problems is not so much how much water you guys are going to get this summer, it's going to be what the quality is. The state has now got us back up to 5% of its allocation, and you can get on the state on the state DWR records, you can see what the state allocations are proposed to be for the next few months. One of the issues is the salinity of the water, and that's something that we don't really have any control over at this point. And that's something that I believe the meetings with the vintners and the cattle people is looking at that we have to keep you apprised of what's going on, but we're kind of stuck in that one too in terms of how salty is this water going to go. We don't really know right now.
Can I answer Mr. Exner's question? No one really answered his question.
Oh, the question that,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, Sarah brought up a good point about the salinity level for the ag water, and I know a lot of drip irrigation systems do not operate if the water supply is salty, and that's why I think one of the good opportunities that we have, and of course it's going to lead to a cost increase, but would be to reuse our water, our treated wastewater, as a blending agent to go in with the saltier ag water, and that could lead to additional water supplies for water. There's going to be another expense with that, of course, because we're looking at double piping and other ways, because it's not going to be potable water. So I think that's one thing that could be considered in terms of decreasing the salinity, because of course all the salinity also ends up in our groundwater basin too. So the more we can blend and reduce that, the better we'll be in the long run.
Thank you. You have another question? You want to start with Sarah, or?
Well, he had a question and nobody answered it.
Oh.
Mr. Exner. Mr. Exner asked why we endeavor to provide water. The endeavor comes before the word quality. They get it directly from the California aqueduct. It goes to the Southway aqueduct, and they're the first ones pumping out of it. So whatever quality comes out of the Delta, we can't control. That's why we say we endeavor to provide you quality water, okay? So we can't say we guarantee you, because if it's bad water out of the Delta, the ag gets bad water, as period. All right, we have nothing, we have no controls, we have no pipelines down in that area. So, sorry.
Okay, I'll direct this question to Sarah Palmer, and the others may answer if they wish. I am confused regarding how much water we will be getting from the state. Please comment on the state allocation as well as what I believe is termed carryover water. If we are provided both sources of state water, the year's allocation plus the carryover water, what is the total percent of water Zone 7 will be receiving, and how will it be allocated during the coming months? I understand the figure may be a variance, but what would that figure be?
I'll have to ask you quite honestly about that. I do not know the numbers on that one. I've seen the numbers for the state allocation. They of course go down in July and August. I think there was like a number like 160. You know, I would really be not giving you good information if I tried to give you some numbers on that one. So I do not know.
That's more of a staff question. Dave, out there would know more than us. How much will carry over?
You carry it. Oh yeah.
Carryover, I believe, is excess water from previous years. I mean, we get it from Byron Bethany. I mean, we used to have a contract to get, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 acre feet. DWR is trying to take that away from us. We're suing them. Okay, we're suing the big gorilla, and we're not really suing them, but we're fighting them right now. They don't want us to give us the BBID water. They said the water we've been taking out of the aqueduct before they gave us the 5%. You have to remember, they said they were going to give us only 0. They said whatever we take out of the aqueduct now to fill up Del Val, we're going to consider your carryover water. So you can't add that to it. In other words, now they gave us 5%, we can't get any more out of semi-trophic because we've already grabbed that. So we only get the 5% allocation right now. So it's very complicated.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I wanted to run for Zone 7 is because of the participation of Zone 7, this intensive participation with the water allocation system through the state water project. I think what's happening is we're ending up in an unsustainable situation where our main water supplies, 80% is all based on allocations we get from state water. What's happening, not even just due to climate change, but due to the aridness of California, is that we're not going to get the snow melt. The DERWA's already, the Department of Water Resources already estimated by 2035 we're going to have 40% less snow melt, and the entire state water project system is based on capturing and distributing snow melt. I think we need to make a decision as a zone to start to work more towards protecting our regional water supplies and not depend so much more on the imported water supplies.
And I agree with Matt wholeheartedly as far as protecting our regional water supplies. It'd be nice that we wouldn't have to depend on the state water. However, I heard today that we bank water, or Zone 7, I say we, that's precocious. We bank water down in Kern County, and it's my understanding that the governor today, within this week, is trying to make some arrangements for us to get the water that's been allocated, that's been banked. And so, you know, that's kudos to Zone 7 for being smart enough to do that. And that's something we need to continue to do. So if we can trade water and store water, times like this, we need it. It's in dire need.
I want to clarify a couple things about banked water and carryover water. The banked water is water that we have allowed to go down south and to be stored in Southern California, Fresno, down that area, Covello district. If the state shuts down the canals and gives us a 0 allocation, there is no capability to pump that water back to Livermore or to the valley. It has, and what that means in the banking is, since we sent that water down there to be stored, they have it. In order to get it back, instead of the state giving them water up north, they'll switch the gate, give the water to us instead of sending it down south, and that makes your banked water available. When the state shuts the canals down and is not transporting any water, you don't have the capabilities of even get what you banked. Our only reserve then is our groundwater basin. And through the efforts of the Zone 7 and all the work that's done in this valley, we've been able to develop our basin and store a lot of water.
Just to add a little bit, I think what we have to assume is that we're not going to get any water from the state. I I mean, the 5% they talk about is maybe. There's no guarantee. So I think we'll have to tough it out this summer and come up with solutions, whether it's for the ranchers or for the folks in the cities. So I think we just have to accept that. And they are talking about trying to pump water backward in through the aqueduct. But I think what we have to work toward is, okay, we're going to have to rely on our basin here and hope that we can get this 5% maybe in September or so, I think is when they're talking. But that's probably all going to depend upon how rapid the snow melt happens. So I think we just move forward and assume that we have what we have. So.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. You have another question?
Yes, these are two questions, but they're related. Why haven't groundwater levels been discussed during this drought emergency? And what can be done about toxins already in the groundwater basin? And I'll start with Mr. Gracie.
I'd like to jump on this issue about the toxins in the water first. As I mentioned earlier, I was in charge of 44 water treatment facilities at Lawrence Livermore Lab because of the contaminations that were in the groundwater. I have a very strong understanding of the complexity of it, the difficulty of removing a lot of these contaminants out of the water, and I have a great appreciation for preventing anything that could contaminate our basin because it is an unsurmountable cost to remove these toxins out of the water beyond the problems that they do cause. I would think very strongly toward desalinization and preservation of the salts, fertilizers, a lot of issues that we think about and talk about in Zone 7 a lot. And those are the only means that we can replenish water by desalinization, which means many, many dollars. It's very expensive.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment?
Well, in terms of the groundwater and the thank you. In terms of the groundwater and the toxins in it, basically one of the things you have to do is try to prevent as much as possible of the toxins getting into the water. A couple things that we have planned on doing for a long time is ozonation and granulated activated charcoal. Those are two methodologies that you can use to remove many of the endocrine disruptors, that type of thing. We have blended water with the desal water that we pull out of over by Santa Rita, and that has changed the quality of the water and made it so that people have a better quality water from our basin.
The word toxin is very innocuous. I don't know what that word means. I just know that the natural ground has high arsenic. It has high chromium. Down in San Jose, you have high mercury, because I do environmental work also. And that stuff leaches into your water. It's just natural occurring, and it's the regulations, as they say, it gets lower and lower. If that's what you're talking about, we'd have to filter it out. We're mandated by law, okay? When it comes to the groundwater basin, we're at 67%. We should have 12,000 acre feet in the last 3 years, but because we can't pump from the delta because the delta smelt during the peak flows, we couldn't recharge our groundwater basin. That's why it's only at 67%. We've lost 12,000 acre feet. If we move the point where we take the water out of the delta further north, we'd be pumping at that time, and our groundwater basin would be full right now instead of at 67%. And for you against the BDCP, well, that's part of the reason why we don't have the water in the groundwater basin. So,
I think in terms of the groundwater basin, we've got 52,000 acre feet of water underneath there, and now we're down to, I think, about 45,000 acre feet. Our historic low is 125,000 acre feet, and certainly there has been problems with mismanaging. Even if the Bay Delta plan were approved now, it would not be constructed. And I think the problem is that we haven't followed our other neighbors in terms of pursuing aggressive conservation. Santa Clara County has increased in population since 1990 by 25%, and their water use is exactly the same as it was in 1990. Los Angeles has reduced their per capita water use since 1990 in the past 20 years. Zone 7 has increased their population, and the water consumption rate has gone up identical to population. There hasn't been serious efforts in conservation, and that would have maintained our groundwater supply.
Thank you.
And the question of the word nitrate, I mean toxins, I would assume I would think of that as nitrates, and we do have nitrate problems here in the valley. Not like the ones that John worked on, but they have to be addressed. And there's ways of doing it. It all comes back to cost. As far as our groundwater basin, it's a shame that we are where we are. We've been in a drought for 4 years. I think we should have seen this coming and develop plans and be proactive rather than reactive.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, I've attended one water quality meeting, and one of my initial reasons for getting into the running was that we had hard water in Pleasanton. We had hard water 10 years ago, and we still have hard water. But what I've found is there's probably more chemical problems in Livermore as opposed to, what our problem of hard water seems less of a concern now to me. So to me, I guess I would try to make an aggressive stand on, how can we address, both issues at the same time.
One quick comment. One thing I like to talk about is dilution. One capability that we cannot do is take lower quality water with a contaminant in it, for instance, arsenic. We have a well in Pleasanton that has arsenic in it, above the drinking water standards. And everybody says, well, okay, what if you just mixed it with a well water that doesn't have the arsenic in it? Well, dilution is not the solution, and it is not allowed by the state to do dilution. So when you drill a well, you've got to make sure that the quality of the water is such that you can maintain it and not have to dilute it and make it available to the public.
That pretty much take care of it. All right, you have another question?
Yes, I do. This question is, and I'll direct this question to Matt Morrison. I live in Pleasanton and understand we get a portion of our water from wells. In Pleasanton, how much of our water needs can be met by well water, and who controls the pumping schedule? Please discuss any strategies you believe would result in more efficient use of well water combined with surface water to better meet total needs, and ideas you have about pumping earlier in the season than Zone 7 did this year to reserve more surface water for supplementing well water later in the season.
Pleasanton gets about 60% of their water from well water, and I think the strategies that can be used, we do have hard water. It's high minerals. It's not dangerous. I've grown up with it. People come here from out of town and think it's yucky. I mean, I'm used to it, but it's not dangerous. The high mineral content has the only real damage we have is it spots on our glasses and it can corrode pipes. We could use strategies to blend treated water for ag if we did double piping. Again, with the drip irrigation systems, they don't work well with the high salinity content. In terms of managing the groundwater level, that's definitely a strategy we need to do is as the snow melt is reduced and the state water system supply becomes more unreliable, we need to focus more on capturing the rainwater that comes through, which currently the zone is really doing a good effort with the chain of lakes and trying to acquire that and being able to capture that groundwater, that rainwater to put into the ground. Thanks.
All right, other people, question, comment? No other comments?
Once City of Pleasanton found out how much it cost to put another pipeline in there to reduce their hardness, they backed off on criticizing us because we're not going to pay for it. We're responsible for the whole valley. So in our mind as Zone 7,
hardness is not a issue. It's water quality that we meet for health standards. That to us is more aesthetics, all right? Then at the same time, on the Livermore end, during the fall months, when you get that real skunky water, okay, you know why? Because everyone dumps their sewage into the delta. Okay, you are drinking recycled water right now, okay? You have to treat it. It's got algae in there, and then when you start treating it, well, you start getting byproducts. It's a very complex chemical situation. So Livermore gets bad water. So Matt's right. You can have double piping, but who's going to pay for it? $1 million a mile, whatever it is. Then you have the easements. You have to have condemned property. It's very, very expensive. And the city of Livermore and Pleasanton are not going like this and saying, we're going to pay for it. All right? So it's a cost issue.
All right. Do you have another question?
Yes. Zone 7 recently purchased a large cattle ranch above Del Val for $20 million to be funded from reserves. These reserves were to build treatment plants and address problems of flood control. Since the ranch land does not meet either criterion established for the reserves, please, number 1, comment on the rationale for purchasing or not purchasing the land, and 2, if you supported the purchase, or for candidates who are not incumbents, if you would have supported the purchase. And does this purchase provide additional water to the community?
I'll let that first get up. I'll stick my neck out. Patterson Ranch was purchased because we didn't want SFPUC to buy it. We didn't want them buying land in our territory. So that way they can claim water rights to our water that's in Del Val. That was one of the main driving points. We have a rancher out there that's very, very ecologically minded. He takes care of the cows when he doesn't let them overgraze. People that want to have trails going through there, you know what? We don't have the insurance to have any kind of liability. What if somebody gets killed? We don't want people going in there right now. We just purchased this thing, and all of a sudden these trails people are jumping down our throats saying, we want access, we want access. Hold a second. Let us step back and think about this for a while. We don't want to have a big, huge liability out there, but the main reason was to keep that water rights. It was offered to East Bay Regional Parks first. They didn't have the money. They gave us the second option. We jumped on it to protect our watershed, so SFPUC, who's right over the hill, wouldn't come, because they were drooling. You don't want SFPUC in our territory. I'll tell you that right now.
Basically, it was a question of watershed, because we do deal with things on a watershed level. A few years ago, EPA did change their stance, and you can see this also with ACWA. People are looking at things on a regional and a watershed level, and one of the things was to protect our region and to keep our watershed that we have local control over.
If I was an incumbent at the time, I would have supported that purchase. Really, that is the key to our future water sustainability, is managing our entire watershed, collecting what comes in off rainwater, which is going to be our supplies that are coming in that are more reliable as we get less snow melt and more rain, and then using that to either store in Del Val or in conjunction with storing in Del Val and recharging through the chain of lakes and through our arroyos. That's the most reliable supply of water we've got going forward. And if we allow other people, other agencies to come in and as Bill said, drill wells out here to somehow get an interest in our water, then that's only going to leave us with less as time's going forward. And believe me, things are going to get competitive as we continue going forward with climate change, and California has to operate under more arid conditions.
I was not an incumbent. I'm familiar with the purchase. It seems like a lot of money, especially where we are right now. Could that money be spent someplace else? I'm not criticizing. I didn't have the access to study it, nor did I have the availability to see, why we were doing it and what it entails. So it's a done deal now. I think we have to live with it, and if the board feel so strongly on it. That's the reason they're on the board.
A couple other issues that were not discussed about the Patterson Ranch and its availability. That represents 5,000 acres of land. If we get our average rainfall for this valley's 13 inches, say a foot, that's 5,000 acre feet of water. This property completely surrounds most of Del Val Lake. Managed properly, it's a perfect opportunity to control the watershed and the amount of runoff that comes off of it, of good quality water. There's a real science in doing that, and we have someone that's very knowledgeable of that process. Secondly, we had the money in the bank, in the county coffers, and we pay as we go when we do things. And if we were to get in a situation, since we didn't need extra treatment facilities, we use that money to purchase a property, and we have collateral in any future instance where we might have to borrow money.
Yeah, I wasn't on the board at the time. Generally, I think, you know, just from what we've discussed here, you want to control the water, the watershed of where you're at. If you go to Crystal Springs in San Francisco, they control the watershed. And I had a friend that worked over there, and they were very protective of that watershed. And I think it sounds like the board did exactly what they should have done.
All right, thank you. Anyone else want to say anything? All right, we're ready for another question.
All right, the next question is, what is your opinion of Zone 7's independence from Alameda County?
Okay, why don't we start with you?
I, as being a retired cop and a prosecutor and working in the county, I think that there's power in numbers. I'm against us trying to walk away from Alameda County. There are times, right now we're in dire straits. And I know there's politics and politics and politics, but we all live in this county, and I feel confident that if we need help from the county, the supervisors, that we'll get it. And I believe that we can all learn to work together. So power and numbers, I don't believe we should be independent.
Thank you.
This process of trying to decide whether Zone 7 will pull out and go on their own, be independent, not be part of the county, is still an ongoing situation. All the T's haven't been crossed or the I's dotted. There are still a lot of issues that need to be solved. It's certainly not going to happen if it isn't beneficial for the citizens in this valley and their water supply and their costs. The main thing that triggered it was the cost of doing business through the county. They would do all our purchasing. They would charge administrative fees to the Zone 7 to do the work, and many times would cause delays on some pertinent material or equipment that we needed in a hurry. But that's one of those issues that Jim talked about. It's something that I think we could work out, and it's still to be decided whether that issue can be worked with the county and cut the costs.
Yeah, you know, this topic has just come up over the last few months with questions directed to me, and I guess I think it certainly should be looked at, you know, along with it also should be looked at, should we be consolidating some of the water districts? I mean, we got 3,000 water districts. Do we need that many water districts? So I think in the valley here, we to me, that being tied to Alameda does seem a little odd at times, and I can understand where bureaucracy can slow things down, but I think we do need to look at it from a cost perspective.
I am interested in taking a little different tact on the idea of separation. I think it exposed some issues in the zone and in staff. One of the original justifications for the separation was because the zone was experiencing people leaving, working for Zone 7. They were losing employees, and they thought they could provide better benefits that would keep them. And then during the debate, there were several employees that were quoted in the press as saying, well, their main concern about separating from Zone 7 was whether they would have the same grievance system as they would have had with the county. And I thought that was a little odd main concern. And then I learned that several years ago there was a poll done of Zone 7 staff, and that apparently the working conditions were at that time not very satisfactory. And so if I'm on the board of directors, I want to do efforts to try to make the Zone 7 staff work more collegially, to do what I can to improve employee retention without having to resort necessarily to separation.
Okay. I just have something to say about staff. At that particular time, there were some issues with staff, and people were quite dissatisfied. Since then, we have formed a couple of management teams. We've gone through training. Our general manager has gone through training. There's been an amazing turnaround in terms of the effort put into making sure that the staff is able to have input into how things are managed, and have greater transparency for staff in the way it's managed. And I've been very impressed with some of the turnaround. I mean, in terms of separation, I'm for it. Basically, I think we need to work regionally, and it would enable us to work more as a unified whole with places like DSRSD and some of the other water agencies in the valley.
15 years ago, we had a study done and said that that Zone 7 should separate. Dale Myers at that time said, no, the politics in this valley is too volatile, because especially after the P water and after Doherty Valley. 3 or 4 years ago, we did the same study, because I'm the one that's been pushing this, okay? Because I was there for that 15 years ago. John was there. And the consultant said, you guys should separate. All right? They hold our assets, or they hold our money. They don't give us the money that we should get out of that in their investments. They take taxes for flood control. They don't give us the money back that we should give back for flood control. We pay them administrative costs. They have a 6-month difference cycle of accounting than we do, so we have to do accounting every year 6 months at a time. It's a no-brainer. You save money, okay, by separating from the county. And the county is digging in their heels saying, we want flood control. I said, no, we're not going to give you flood control, because we want the chain of lakes. We don't want you controlling our chain of lakes. So when you hear the county saying they want to maintain flood control, Zone 7 is adamant against it. The flood control people at Zone 7 are adamant. They want to stay with Zone 7. Thank you.
Thank you. All of you, any other comments on that? All right, you have another question?
Ms. Palmer touched on this, and so I'll start with her. What do you believe can be done to reduce endocrine disruptors?
Okay, yeah, endocrine disruptors, just for those of you who don't know, it's things that mimic the normal type of hormones, like estrogens type things are the main culprits. Part of the problem with that is that it's in our pee, it's in people who take birth control pills. It gets into the system. It gets into any recycled water system, and so the issues of recycled water is where you start to have some of the main issues of potential endocrine disruptors. So that means that they mimic, or they sometimes block what might be normally going on in the body. Yeah, males don't like the idea of feminization. Okay, one of the things you can do is ozonation and granulated activated charcoal are good methodologies for reducing endocrine disruptors. So do it before it gets in the groundwater.
The issue of endocrine disruptors is that there are a lot of chemicals that are unregulated that go into our water system, and people take medications and they urinate them out, and it goes into the water system, and then it becomes a problem where we're using, as Sarah said, with the reuse. One thing we could do is we could double pipe homes, new homes that are coming in, have them have their toilet system on a separate water supply than their shower and sinks. And that goes to recently in 2012, the state of California passed new gray water standards, which allow for your shower water, sink water, to go, and laundry water all to go into your landscaping. You can actually divert that to your landscaping. These things are all going to cost money, which is why the Bay Delta plan is a bad plan, because it's going to suck up all the money in the state for maintaining an unreliable system, because it's all based on snowmelt.
Down here, anyone?
I guess, let me expert on the endocrine, but I think we have to assume that Sarah's the expert in this case, and I can't imagine what it would cost to retrofit every house in this valley, and I'm not sure I want to send out wastewater from my wash machine onto my artichoke. So but I'm most concerned about the incredible cost that would be, and it's just not even. I don't even think it's even on the drawing boards.
I can't pronounce this, and I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about recycled water back, 15 years ago. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of chemical constituents that people were worried about from recycled water. John Marchand, at the end, voted against it because he had other political plans. But all the science was there that you can recycle water, and it got voted down. And that was one of the main arguments, one of the arguments for it. It's like, well, what about all the pharmaceuticals that you're putting into our drinking system? And like I said before, you're already drinking it from the Delta. All right.
All right, does that take care of all the comments on that question?
All right, you have another question.
The next question would be, Zone 7 must have a plan for delivering water to the retailers this summer. What is this plan? Will any options to be considered for adjusting the plan as it becomes firm how much water the state will allocate be an open process, including the public?
All right, where would we like to start? Why don't you take that?
Zone 7's a wholesaler. We'd suggest what type of conservation issues that people should follow, but they are implemented and monitored and corralled by our retailers, Cal Water, Livermore Water, San Ramon Service District, and Pleasanton Water. So they would have the authority to implement rules which people would have to follow. It's not the Zone 7 that does it. We can kind of dangle the carrot. Say, okay, this is what we suggest you do. It's a very cooperative working relationship with our wholesalers and the retailers together, the Zone 7 and all the water agencies, and it's worked very efficiently.
I think one thing that Zone 7 could do in terms of distributing the water is they could set drought level pricing, and that pricing could stay into effect, should be going forward, because if you look at the water plan going forward, the state plan is that we're going to plan for another dry year next year, but then to plan for 3 normal years after that. And there have been occasions in California history where we've had droughts that last decades or even over a century. And if we get hit with one of those, we do not have the infrastructure to deal with it. That's one thing we could do, is start planning ahead for these type of events, planning ahead for the climate that California really has, and not the wet climate that occurred during the 20th century when all these water rights were allocated. We need to go back and do a new water right allocate system. That's going to happen at the state level. But in terms of Zone 7, we need to get by with selling less water, which means we need to sell it at a premium, and that would automatically encourage people to conserve. And it should be done when we're not in drought as well.
All right, thank you.
I want to hit on what John said. The staff between the cities and Cal Water and Zone 7 their relationship is just superb. They know this is an emergency. They already have plans. They're looking at different piping and which pumps they can start moving in different directions. They're going to coordinate their pumping efforts. So that's the only way we can do it. As a wholesaler, we cannot tell them what to do, but because of this drought, everyone's just coming together and just working together and saying, how can we make sure that we all have health and safety? How can we make sure that we have water to put out your fires? I mean, that's the number one concern, right? We have that water. We have the state allocation. We're going to get the 5% in September, all right? The state water contractors, not DWR, not the governor, has come up with a plan and they're going to pay for it to try pumping the water backwards up the aqueduct. That's a way we may get our semi-tropic, our banked water, okay? Kern County and Metropolitan, right now, Kern County really needs the water, and Metropolitan trying to find a way to give them water. Everybody's working together in this drought. It's amazing.
Just a couple months ago, we had the Tri-Valley groups got together, and we had a liaison meeting, and basically we worked on some joint powers types of activities, and it is really true. People are truly working together. One of the issues that we all have to keep in mind is that with this pumping the water backwards, the state and the water agencies from Southern California, Northern California, are really trying to figure out ways to get water to the folks who have the pistachio trees and have the permanent agriculture, so that those things and those investments don't die on them.
Is that?
One thing that's happening right now, until the state shuts down the canal, we're pushing as much water as we possibly can into Del Val. There are several agricultural turnouts below Del Val, which is going to allow, from what I hear, a letter went out the other day, that you're going to get 75% of your water if your turnout is below the Del Val Dam. They're going to take it out of Del Val. We don't control Del Val. Zone 7 does not. It's a state controlled for flood control, and each year enough water has to be let out of that lake in order to allow for a 100-year storm. Sadly, that's wasted water. Some of it gets released and recharges our basin. That's a fortunate thing. We can still use it, but not all of it. So I just want to bring up the point that we've been able to allocate more water for the agriculture through the turnouts below Del Val.
I guess I'd like to speak to the question about the public hearing type thing. I guess I'd encourage people to, just on my own as a citizen, I've been to the Zone 7 meetings. This is discussed. I went to the Pleasanton City Council meeting. It's a public meeting. It was, they discussed, what they were going to do and what their action items were. I think what all of us need to understand is we're basically behind the curve. We really should have started saving water in January, let's say, instead of people are still watering their lawns during the day. So I guess encourage people to go to the public hearings and say something. If they don't understand what's going on. And as far as Lake DeVal, I think they've maxed it out now. They've got it about as high as they can get it. I guess I was reading an article that it's full.
I agree with Mr. Gracie that we are a wholesaler, not a retailer. So, if we don't have the water, we can't tell the retailers how to ration it and how to, if we don't have it to give it to them, they're the people that are going to have to handle that. I also agree with Mr. Stevens, and this was a point I wanted to bring up later. He beat me to the punch, that we really have a dire situation for public safety with fire. We have to have enough water to put fires out. If we don't, we're in dire straits, all of us.
All right, thank you all. Do we have a couple of more questions?
Yes, this one is asked, how do you balance agricultural needs for water versus residential needs?
That was the answer. That was the first question.
Maybe I'm mistaken, but that to me is the same question as we had the first one. Not the same language, but it was the same thing, about allocation.
The first question?
Yes, the very first one was about ag, about,
Okay, then
they get the same, okay.
choose another one. And this is for everyone. No, I'm not going to use that. Has Zone 7 taken a position on the current state water proposal?
I'm sure she means to BDCPD.
Yes. I do.
You want to hit that one first?
All right, I'll be the first one they can knock down. Everyone knows there's going to be seawater rise, so when you hear about salinity increase in the Delta, it's going to happen with or without us moving this pipe. So the Delta folks, they're going to get affected. But at the same time, it's going to affect us. The ag and the valley will go away because that's where they get their water from. If it's higher salinity, they can't put it on their crops. They'll kill the crops. Okay? So, and we get 80% of our water from there. If you start doing the math, you know what? You have to build it. You can't wait any longer. We've already waited. They didn't pass it in the 1970s because that was North versus South. But now it's totally different. It's all different battles. But the thing is, all the state water contractors are together on this. It's a matter of survival. 800,000 acres are going fallow this year. No lettuce is being grown. You're going to have 50% unemployment in the valley. Okay, it doesn't hurt the big ag growers. It hurts the little people. It's a no-brainer. You have to build it.
Just as an addition to that, with the 800,000 plus acres going fallow, this has got huge impact in terms of people, because it turns out, I was talking to one guy down in Monterey the other day. He said that they have a huge number of people who are out of work as a result of this, and what happens is that it affects kids in the schools, it affects their local economy, it also affects, they've got increased domestic violence going up, tremendous rates of domestic violence in the Central Valley with the folks who are out of work right now. So me personally, I support the BDCP because I believe in looking at the long term. We're talking climate change here, folks, and it's going to be salty there, and we need to pull it out from another source because we will not have water if we don't.
I served as a Sierra Club rep on the Environmental Water Caucus, and we came up, it's a coalition of 30 environmental groups, mainstream environmental groups, that came together and put forth a plan that did not require the twin tunnels. Basically, the reason the Delta is dying is because we're taking too much water out of it. There's, in 1992, the State Water Resources Board assumed that in order to maintain the habitat in the Delta, the most you could take out was 2.6 million acre feet of water a year. We're currently taking, from, depending on the dryness of the year, anywhere from 5 to 7 million acre foot. The Bay Delta Tunnel Plan does not do anything for the levees. It does not do anything for other parts of the aqueduct that are susceptible to earthquake. The best thing to do is to take and do a multitude of projects that involve levee strengthening, doing water conservation. The Bay Delta, or the Environmental Water Caucus, estimates in terms of jobs, the Bay Tunnel Plan will give 5 jobs for every $1 million spent, where the alternative plan will give 15 jobs for every $1 million spent.
Thank you.
The question is asked, is this the way we should go? And I would like to ask a question back. How many people believe or think that this project is not going to get held up by lawsuits for how many years? Lawsuit after lawsuit. I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer. I understand that. That's huge. The other issue is are we getting more water if we build these tunnels? We're going to have the same watershed, the same snow, the same water's going to come through. So my issue is if that's what everybody wants, fine, but we need to fix something now. We need more storage. We should be working on that. We should be spending some of those billions of dollars that the tunnel project is going to entail to help us now. We need a short-term fix, not 20 years from now.
I agree with the issues about the lawsuits. Any time that we've tried to get something done, whether it's constructing a simple pipeline, we have environmental issues to deal with in the Zone 7. And Department of Fish and Game is our largest issue. They don't get things done right away, and they sure make it difficult for us. Now, we try to be good environmental people in the Zone 7, and I'm going to brag about the staff because I know for a fact the way they all think. I've been involved with them for many years, and a lot of people that aren't currently on there now were strong environmental people. And it's been a focus of the Zone 7 for many years. We do not have an option to bypass environmental issues. If you don't solve the environmental issues first, your permits and your all your reports will not go through, your project will never take place. They all take time and a lot of money.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take the position that I'm for the tunnels or the pipes. Shortly, the one benefit we would get is we'd be pulling in the water from much further upstream. In the Sacramento area, there would be 3 areas where we'd pull water in from. we would then bring it down to the Tracy pumps, and so we would not be taking water from the bottom of the delta and disrupting all the fish flows. Yes, there's going to be lawsuits, but I think I just want to refer people to the Zone 7 website, and there's a very good video, a presentation by John Laird. I'll read it. His title: "The Secretary of California Natural Resources Agency." Really, it's an hour long, but it's worthwhile listening to. Thank you.
Do you have one more final question?
I have one more final question. It's probably a good one to be the final question. Zone 7 used to be committed to a policy of 100% reliability of water delivery to retailers and agriculturalists. What new strategies would you propose to plan for meeting local water needs for future droughts to return to that 100% reliability?
This is my favorite topic, chain of lakes. All right, this is storage. This is the only way we're going to get water for future use. Instead of letting it flow down to the Alameda and out to the ocean, at certain times of clean flow, we'll be able to divert that water into the quarries for recharge purposes or for pumping it back out and supplying it to our customers. We're fortunate in this valley because we have the basin. A lot of cities don't have what we have here for that capability. We have the capability of recharging it. And the chain of lakes is going to be a lifesaver for this valley as soon as we obtain all of those quarries. We have 3 now, and we are in a proactive approach to using the 3 we got and drilling new wells there and for transporting the water.
Yeah, I think that the chain of lakes is certainly a long-term solution. I think there's other things on the drawing board to improve the infrastructure, just even from the Tracy pumps through Grizzly Peak, I think it is. And so there's storage capabilities between here and Tracy. I think we also need to look at long-term, maybe is there a way to obtain other water? I've talked to one person where their water district obtained water that they don't even need right now, but they've locked it in. So I think we need to look at what we can do to increase the water flowing to us. So.
I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Gracie. The chain of lakes should be called the crown jewel of the Tri-Valley. The problem I see, though, I don't believe that they will be completed until 2050 or 2057. I'm not sure of the numbers. So between now and then, we still are in dire straits and we still have issues. Conservation, recycling. If I could wiggle my nose, I'd like to see a pipe from Del Val down to the chain of lakes where we could exchange water back and forth. Maybe that's something that should be looked at. I'm sure the economics are going to be huge, but it's something I'd like to see studied.
I think the premise of the question about 100% reliability has to be looked at on the front end, not on the end of what's coming out. I think the cities, the retailers really need to take a hard look at what type of water supply is sustainable, because 100% of what was reliable in the 20th century is not going to be 100% of what's reliable in the 21st century, particularly when we're depending on that 100% reliability on 80% coming from a water system that is going to fall apart over the next generation. And so the main thing we have to do is do a study about what we need to supply our population, what we need to supply our projected build out of the different communities here, and then figure out how we can reduce that water demand as such as possible. The more we can reduce it, the more we can make our water supply sustainable and not so dependent on diversions from the Delta. That's where our reliability is going to come from.
Part of the thing is what we look at in terms of infrastructure. I think you hinted at this one already. Encouraging people to put pervious surfaces in so that we can collect more things in our groundwater. Also, when we're dealing with infrastructure, we have a lot of infrastructure that is old and failing, and it's many years old. We can conserve a great deal of water by making sure our pipes aren't leaking, because we do have pipes that are leaking. We lose a lot of water that way. Every single city in the United States has this problem right now, especially back east. And so we need to do a major rehaul of our infrastructure. It's expensive. Also, we have to work at things like intertie systems with Contra Costa County, for example, with areas that are going to potentially be doing some desal from the Delta. So these are all issues that I think we have to look at. We're going to have to come to terms with increasing some of our availability in other ways.
This is a 10-minute answer, and I can't give it, so I'm just gonna give you a little snippet. I'm gonna talk to you regionally, California-wise, okay? All the state water contractors are right now, we're one whole solid group, and it's never occurred in history, okay? I already told you about Met providing water backwards to Kern. Kern's paying for everything, okay? Because they're that desperate. That's the point that we've reached right now. Sarah mentioned the intertie. That's what we're working out with East Bay Mud, San Francisco PUC. When you have water, you can move the water around, okay? So there's water out there. How do you get it? Okay, you get it by moving it around, but it costs money to put those pipelines in. If you purchase water, right now they're going to blackmail you. Okay, it costs way too much, and so I'm just talking regionally, but I have other plans locally. So.
Thank you. Does that finish answering the question? All right. We're now ready for our closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their closing statement. And we'd like to begin in reverse alphabetical order with Bill Stevens.
All I can do is Zone 7 director. I think I can contribute a lot. I've learned a lot. Some of my views are maybe a little bit strong for people, but since being there, you have to know what's in the background and why it's important. Okay. I only have 3 points. You need more storage. And there's ways of getting to more storage. You have to pass the BDCP, and you have to separate from the county. We have 3 storage areas right now, okay? You have the groundwater basin, which is 67%. It should be full if the BDCP were in place right now. You have the chain of lakes, which we'll get in pieces. We're working with the quarries, okay? Behind the scenes, trying to get lakes here and there. The chain of lakes are free. We're not paying a cent for those. So if they want to give, before it was, now it's 2068, we have time, but we're working out things and planning for the future. And we have Del Val. You could raise Del Val. Well, guess what? We own the land around Del Val, but we can't afford it. Too many environmentalists will be suing us. So that's something to think about in the future, okay? We already have storage. We just have to find a way to get it in there. And so being more cooperative with other water agencies, and having our storage capabilities, down the road, we can provide 100% reliability.
Thank you. Sarah Palmer.
Okay. Well, I've been on the Finance Committee. I am an environmentalist, although you might not think so from some of my views. I think because mainly what I've come to terms with in my experiences is that people's lives and livelihoods really do matter. And so you have to balance things. It's always a very, very tricky thing. My main point is, I have to tell you right now, Lester Brown, if you don't know him, he is my hero, and sustainability is the main issue. We cannot be just thinking in terms of what's going to happen next year or even in 5 years. We have to look 50 years, 100 years down the road, because it's our families, it's our future we're talking about here. And water is key. Civilizations have fallen because water has not been available, or it's been misused, or it's been mismanaged. And we have to see that there's a tremendous nexus between surface water, groundwater, energy utilization, and where we get things and how we interact with the water and what our people are doing. And agriculture, of course, because if we don't eat, we don't live. So it's tricky. And then sometimes I waffle on things. It's because I'm trying to see about balancing all of these issues, the political, the environmental, and the economic. And if we don't look at all of those issues together, we will fail to meet our needs.
Thank you. Matt Morrison.
Thing that had a big impression on me, I went and saw a scientist give a talk about the history of water in California. And for a period from 900 AD until 1100 AD, and from 1200 AD to 1350 AD, we were in drought in California, and it wiped out the Anasazi civilization, the Native American civilization that was there at the time. And these conditions can occur, and that's without climate change, without any change. That's our natural environment, have had these big, huge mega droughts. It's more common that we had droughts of a decade or 2 decades. The 20th century, when we put into place these water rights system, was a wetter than normal century for California. We are going to have to come to face with the actual climate of California, and not get through this drought and get to a time where all of a sudden we have a normal year and we forget all these things that we did for the drought. So I think the Bay Delta, the Twin Tunnel plan, is a terrible plan because it sucks up to $60 billion in bonds and bond financing, when we could take that money and use a much smaller portion of it, maybe half or a third of that, and we could put in recycling. We could fallow ag land that's contaminated. We can strengthen levees. Here locally, we can use support to get by, because we'll be getting by with, if we sell less water, we're not going to have as much money to spend on flood control and on infrastructure. We need the state's support to help putting in rainwater capture systems, to putting in double piping systems, to being able to take advantage of gray water systems, to be able to look at water, very, very complex and expensive water reuse strategies. These things all are going to require money, and if we build these tunnels, that's going to suck it up all out of the budget, and there won't be anything left for alternative strategies.
All right, thank you. We're going to hear Jim McGrail.
Thank you. When I decided to take this venture on, I thought, well, you better learn a little bit about what you're talking about. And so all the books that you read from Zone 7 and every place else, there's always an acronym. BDCP, DRW, on and on and on. So you read a page and you got to go back. So here's the one I want to put out for me. QQS, quality, quantity, and sustainability. That's what we need. And we can do it if we work together, if we use the chain of lakes, if we recycle. We should be putting a lot more effort into that. I know that Zone 7 has a program for the schools. I've said this many times. We should have a budget where we are not force feeding, but talking to our kids every day. There's nothing more honest than a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old that would walk in and say, "Hey, Dad, you've been in the shower too long. Turn it off." And that's where we are right now. We're in dire straits, and there's no quick fix. The tunnels won't be here tomorrow. The chain of lakes won't be here for a while. So we've got to work towards quality, quantity, and sustainability, and there's ways of doing it if we are all educated. Education is huge, and it's incumbent on all of us to educate ourselves as well as our kids and our family for us, our children, and our grandkids and future generations.
Okay, next from John Greasy.
Fellow members have gave a synopsis already of all the very important issues that are involved with water. It's an extremely complicated business. In my 20 years on this board, I've gone through 4 general managers and many other board members, learned a lot about water, but most of all is the importance of managing it. Manage it for availability, manage it for quality, and for the people in this valley, it's imperative that you remember we have means of which we can store more water. It's already starting to happen. It's a visual effect that previous general managers had in these chain of lakes, and we're going to have capabilities of storing more water. We can't make it. You can't wave that magic wand. We have something now, though, that we didn't have many thousands or hundreds of years ago when they had big droughts. They didn't have reverse osmosis. okay? That's a process where you can dip that straw in the ocean and you can treat it and create your water and put the brine back in the ocean, but you still have a supply. But that is the most expensive way of getting water. The Zone 7 is currently involved with a reverse osmosis program that's going on in the Bay Area, and we're very proactive in that program, and we are going to look at it very seriously along with many other water agencies that are involved. So the future is storage.
Thank you. Our final candidate is Alfred Exner.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting me. One of the things I've learned from watching the board and the management at Zone 7 is they're very professional, and it's I guess I would be honored to be part of that group. I think what I could bring to the scene is 40 years of accounting experience, and I think we're going to have a paradigm shift here that we're going to have to spend a lot of money, and we're spending it every meeting. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I would like to bring some of the disciplines I've learned in finance and being an auditor and that type of thing into the mix. I think I could add some value there. I'm going to harp a lot, probably if I get elected, on water quality. It's a big thing to me, and I think that you can't see it, but if there's something in there that we shouldn't be occurring, that we want to have water better than what the state maybe requires. So the storage, I think, is on everyone's list, is that we need water storage and a way to get to it. Having it down in Kern County in the middle of a drought obviously is not the best plan. Maybe we can get some, but it's a long ways away. One of my big things is in the environment. I think the message that we're currently sending to the kids by turning off the water to the Sycamore Grove is the wrong signal. We need to keep the water trickling down the stream, so to speak, to keep the animals spread out and some level of sustainability going on in those arroyos. I think the final thing is these interties. Jill, the general manager, brought up that there's work going on there. It's going to cost a fortune, but if we have an earthquake, I think we would want to have ties to the other water districts. And no different than what happened in Marin. We need to have those ties. So, thank you.
Thank you all. The League of Women Voters of the Livermore-Amador Valley thanks the candidates for their participation in tonight's forum and for their involvement in the community, the audience for its questions, and the Association of University Women Livermore, Pleasant, and Dublin. We hope tonight's program has helped you prepare for the June 3rd, 2014 election. Thanks to Tri-Valley Community Television for recording this forum for use on the Smart Voter website, as well as on the Livermore-Amador Valley League website. For additional in-depth election information, please log on to the League of Women Voters Smart Voter website at www.smartvoter.org. The right to vote is a special privilege. Vote on June 3rd, 2014, and encourage others to do so also. Thank you very much, and good evening.